Back with us on the SportsMax zone, the West Indies players are fine-tuning preparations for a 3-match T20 and a 2-test series against hosts New Zealand starting on November 27. There have been 2 important announcements so far on tour: Roston Chase's promotion to Test vice-captain and Nicholas Pooran's appointment as T20 vice-captain. Chase has been better than decent in the long game, scoring 5 centuries and taking 3 5-wicket hauls in 35 tests. Pooran, meanwhile, has looked solid since making his white ball debut for the Windies, scoring 2 half-centuries in 19 innings and averaging 49 in one-day international cricket. Meanwhile, Andre Russell's place in the West Indies white ball teams could be in jeopardy due to increasing injury worries and the number of times he has declined invitations to join the squad. Windies chief of selectors Roger Harper says Russell was invited to travel to New Zealand for the 3-match T20 series, but declined, citing a need to clear his head after having to deal with playing amid the pandemic. We are set to be joined by Fazeer Mohammed to talk about these issues, but we have a man of cricket with us on this panel. So I want to ask you this, Wayne. Some people are saying, well, Nicholas Pooran's elevation to the white ball vice-captaincy is good, but what about some players that the Windies would have been grooming for future leadership, especially those who would have led with success at the youth level?
Yeah.
Shimron Hetmyer, under-19 captain, we all know what he did with that under-19 team. And people are saying, well, Pooran gets the call for the white ball vice-captaincy. What has happened to Hetty? What is your best information, Mr. Lewis?
First thing, I have no information on it. However, that's a good. So I don't know who told you. Maybe Mariah told you that I had some information as well.
No,
Mariah,
I would know if you
have
had
been misled there, George.
Yes, sir.
Never.
But
what your feeling about it?
But that's a reasonable, that's a good question. I mean, after what he did, I mean, everyone in the Caribbean, they were talking about that this young man is definitely one for the future. He's a definite leader. And he has come on now, he's in the West Indies team, he's an all-format player. He plays Test cricket, ODIs and T20. And persons have been talking about his approach or his attitude on the field, the way he bats and so on. He's not settled and he's loose with his play. He's not setting the level of premium on his wicket and so on. So there has been some complaints we have seen now that this new selection panel, they have dropped him more than once and so on. So they are talk about, you know, selectors and certain persons in Cricket West Indies are disappointed with the level of maturity being displayed by Hetmyer, and on that basis, maybe that's why they're looking to Pooran. Maybe they're sending a message to Hetmyer that he needs to start getting a little more mature and settle down a little more. And we don't know. We have not heard anything from the selectors, but it's a reasonable thing to discuss.
But Wayne, personally, if you had to pick a vice-captain between Shimron Hetmyer and Nicholas Pooran, based on just, I mean, how they approach the game, when they're dismissed, just simple things like that, don't you think that Hetmyer needs to wait a bit and, of course, settle down a little?
Listen, the cap that I'm wearing, outside of the fact that I'm co-hosting the show with you today,
okay, you think
does
you're
not allow me to give my opinion on that.
That's
other than
fine.
the fact that they are 2 enterprising, very exciting young batsmen that definitely will take
let me cut you short.
So I don't want to get into which one.
Well, here's what I want to get into. After we finish with Fazeer Mohammed, if we have time, I want to get into a matter with you about grooming for leadership. That should be a controversial free zone that you can give your opinion on. We respect your reticence given your position with the West Indies Players Association. International man of cricket and journalism. He is, you know, a big deal back in TNT. Not that he would tell you so himself. He's a modest man, always been, always will be. Fazeer Mohammed has joined us now. Fazeer, good afternoon. Fazeer? Not yet. All right. Gives me a chance to provoke Wayne Lewis now. Now, Wayne, here's the thing. Shimron Hetmyer, under-19 captain, successful under-19 captain. Some people say, well, that means that when you're looking to the senior team that he's a part of now and looking at leaders, he should get special consideration given the success that he has had as a leader at the youth level, while other people say his experience at the youth level and the fact that he led should have no bearing. It should be about what he is doing in the senior setup, and he shouldn't have any advantage over anybody else. How do you see that?
How do I see that? Well, I don't know. It depends on the circumstances of the situation. I have to answer it that way, George. I don't know what has been his attitude.
Remember, you know, I'm not talking really about Hetmyer in particularly, or Pooran specifically. I'm just talking about players.
But I'm going to use him.
Yes,
I'm going to use him
as examples.
As an example. I don't know what has happened since he had, you know, started playing senior cricket now and so on. Maybe, who knows, the selectors maybe are expected that same level of maturity going into playing in the West Indies senior team and so on. Maybe they are sending a message that he has not been maturing at the level that they're expecting him to, and on that basis they're looking at someone who might display a lot more maturity.
But Mariah,
I want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to ask, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that when you're picking somebody to lead your team, you see how Karen Pollard leads the team? It's more than just being able to perform on the field. I feel like the stage that Shimron Hetmyer is right now and the inconsistency that he has shown from time to time, Hetty needs to just focus on batting, focus on doing what he has to do, his role. Because I feel like if he were to be a leader and were to tell another player on the squad with his inconsistent performance, nobody would listen. It comes as if somebody can't spell and come and tell me, Mariah, spell this way. I will never listen.
So you're saying that it's because of his inconsistency as a performing with the bat why he's not been appointed vice captain? Because you could say that Nicholas Pooran has been inconsistent as well. So it cannot be that because of his batting and his inconsistency why he has not been offered the captaincy.
Well,
he has not been offered the captain of Guyana, which is very telling. After captaining the West Indies team and winning the World Cup and so on, we figured that he would have been thrown in the ocean immediately and say, you take this Guyana team, a pretty young team, take the team forward. He has not been appointed captain of Guyana, which to me says a lot as well.
Mariah, I'm waiting on your response.
No, I'm thinking that apart from that, have you looked at the matches when Shimron Hetmyer is dismissed and goes back to sit down with the rest of the team?
I don't know that you use it. People different. Like me, for example, when I used to play, it doesn't matter. It could be my mother. When I get out, whether I make 100, a double century or not, you need to give me 5-10 minutes because I'm beside myself. I used to hate getting out, and therefore you need to give. So I don't know that you can use that. Some guys might smile a little bit, but they are hurting inside and they might not show their emotions, and therefore I don't know that you could use that to say.
All right.
That's the reason.
Well, another thing is the people that are in charge of picking these leaders would be working with these players on a day-to-day basis. They would know how the rest of players react to them. I mean, the respect that they command from other players. So they would know best. They would know maybe based on who they're selecting Nicholas Pooran over Shimron Hetmyer. And I have to assume here, because just like both of you, we're not around the players every day to know. Maybe Nicholas Pooran gets more respect from the rest of the players.
No, don't get me wrong. This is not a situation.
This is a leadership position.
This is not, I'm not admonishing the selectors for appointing Pooran ahead of Hetmyer. Don't get me wrong, that's not the argument. That's not what we're talking about. We're just saying that we figured that Hetmyer was groomed from what he did in the under-19. And it's kind of surprising that you would bring in a Pooran ahead of him now.
People change. Times change.
But sometimes he gives somebody an opportunity and they change the opportunity and the responsibility. But the responsibility sometimes can get them to change and be mature a lot faster.
Listen, with this West Indies team, trial and error is the last thing we need to do right now, especially
so
if
would it be trial and error
so
he's not trial and error to appoint Pooran as vice captain?
As I said, people change.
No, I'm asking you, are you saying that appointing Hetmyer would be trial and error, but it's not trial and error for Pooran?
I'm not saying that. I'm trusting that the people that are making the decision know why they're doing that.
I'm sure they do, and I'm hoping that they really do. And I hope that they are correct in making the decision. We're not questioning their ability or their responsibility in appointing Pooran. We're just saying that what's happening to Hetmyer, it would be nice to hear something as to, is it that they're not looking in his direction going forward? Why they have chose to give Pooran the nod?
All right, well, Wayne raised some really big questions there, George.
Yeah, break time. Back with us on the SportsMax zone. So we had advertised earlier that we were due to speak with Fazeer Mohammed on matters concerning the West Indies team on tour of New Zealand, what with the appointment of Roston Chase as test vice captain and the promotion of Nicholas Pooran to the position of vice captain for the white ball team. He'll be taking duties in the T20 series. We have now connected with Fazeer and we will discuss those two issues with him along with what Roger Harper had to say about Andre Russell's place in future West Indies teams. Welcome to the SportsMax zone, Fazeer.
Good to be on the show once again.
Excellent. Glad to know that you are fit and well, unlike the entire Liverpool backline.
Well, yeah, and as I was just telling Lance a couple of days ago, I am gradually disentangling myself from supporting Liverpool. Not for any reason, issues of performance and so on, but it's a long story. But we don't have time for that now.
Anguish. All right, let's talk cricket because the first thing to start is Roston Chase's promotion to the post of vice captain, which of course necessitates the relegation of Craig Brathwaite to just a normal player status.
Yeah, and I suppose sometimes we might place too much stock in the vice captaincy because, you know, it's sort of like being vice president. You're just there, you know, doing what, essentially? Waiting for the captain to leave the field or something. But in some cases, it's a statement of intent. And I think in the case of Roston Chase, it is a statement of intent because he's very much established himself in the West Indies team over the last 4 years. He's a useful contributor with the bat, with the ball as well. Remember those 8 wickets against England at Kensington Oval last year. And Craig Brathwaite, by contrast, has been struggling. Yes, he's a senior player. Yes, he's even more senior than Jason Holder when it comes to experience in the senior West Indies team. But again, this might be a message to Craig Brathwaite that forget about any aspirations of leadership at senior West Indies level. You need to get yourself sorted out with the bat at the top of the order because you're not producing the sort of runs that would be expected. And by the same token, again, talking about Roston Chase, well, let's say, look, Jason Holder is a young man, but you're a young player. You're seen as someone with a bright future as a player and a potential leader. So in many different ways and at many different levels, it's a statement of intent, just that one decision.
From all reports, Roston Chase is a nice guy. And I want to ask you, what do you see as the main reason? There are many, I'm sure, but the main reason for him being given this vice captaincy post. Is it to encourage him to go to a next level, given the greater responsibility attached to him? Or is it as a reward for the quality he has displayed relatively consistently for the West Indies over the past 2 or so years of cricket?
Well, I would hope that everyone isn't waiting to be elevated to vice captain to up their game, because as we look at those numbers, they're not bad, but they could be better. And I think that could be said of every single person in a West Indies test team, especially. But I think it's because he is one of the few you could think of now as an automatic selection that they'll feel comfortable entrusting that position onto him, which again, is seen with a sort of semi-seriousness, but it does indicate that he is seen as a regular in the team, a sure pick, as we would say. In contrast, maybe they're opening the door for Craig Brathwaite to understand that, look, yes, you might be a senior player, but your place isn't guaranteed. But I think the idea is it's manifold, and you would need to have the selectors themselves enunciate it clearly. But I would think that it is a couple of things there. Showing faith in him. You're a sure pick in the team. We want you to take your game forward. Show that leadership. Show that forthright nature. Don't just be standing quietly in the background at slip or at cover or whatever. Show that you want to contribute in a meaningful way to the West Indies team on the field. At
least until November 30th, Fazeer, it's hurricane season in this part of the world. Where West Indies cricket is concerned, it seems to be Nicholas Pooran's season. And the young man has been given the responsibility of white ball vice captain. What do you think the reasoning behind that appointment is?
And that's an interesting one, because I would hope that the selectors aren't just going with the flow, aren't just going with the hurricane season and thinking that this will blow and blow and blow. Because he's a young player, he's a talented player, he's in demand all over the world. He's just signed for the Melbourne Stars in the BBL. Does that mean he's not available for the West Indies in those warm-up matches while the test matches are being played, which would be a clear statement of intent by him to show that he wants to play test cricket? That's another side of it. But again, it could very well be that they see in him leadership. They see
that Roger Harper has said so far in his time as chief selector is what he articulated about Andre Russell, and the fact that, look, a combination of Russell declining invitations, giving reasons for the decline, and the injuries that have put a crimp on Russell's performances in many competitions over the past several months, that those things could eventually see the transition being made from Andre Russell. I want to hear your perspective on the chief selector's reasoning.
Well, you know, sometimes I would have thought that even the Hubble telescope couldn't find something controversial from Roger Harper, because he is so anodyne with whatever he says. It's almost as if at the end of the answer, You wonder if he's not even answered the question that you asked him, and you probably forgot what the question was when you asked him. But it's obvious that they're frustrated in the case of Andre Russell. They've been frustrated with Sunil Narayan. They've been frustrated with a number of these players. And when you've got a situation where a player says that he needs to clear his head and then signs up to the LPL, the Sri Lanka Premier League, and then pulls out of it, it leaves you to wonder what is going on. And therefore, with a player of his talent, I think that the biggest issue for Andre Russell would be fitness. Can his body take all that is required now, even though he's still in demand in T20 franchise cricket all over the world? I would think that there has to be a discussion with Cricket West Indies, not just simply saying that, we're wondering whether or not he's really interested in playing for the West Indies. I think those dark days are gone. You need to be able, as a chief selector, as one of the selectors, as someone, be able to chat with someone, whether it's on whatever they do, however they do it these days, on social media or whatever platform, have a direct chat with a player and say, look, Andre, what is your situation? Are you unsettled? Let us know, because we still think that you have it in you to make a contribution. If you don't find, it's your choice.
But my question for you, Fazeer, does this square with the stated approach by no less a person than the head of Cricket West Indies, Ricky Skerritt, who said, look, the days of us compelling players to play for us, they are over. We will accept a player if they make themselves available. If they're not available, we won't hold it against them. For Roger Harper to say what he has said, isn't this a form, veiled though it may be, of holding against a player, them making themselves available at the request of Cricket West Indies?
And that would depend on what discussions would have said. Yes, it sounds very contradictory, those two statements, Johnny Grave and then Roger Harper. But again, from my understanding, part of the discourse was that they would reach an agreement with the players to allow them 2 franchise tournaments, guaranteed, CPL, IPL, and maybe one other. And therefore, again, in the absence of all that detail, we're not entirely sure. Is it a case where Andre Russell is just thoroughly frustrated with a number of things, including his continuous issue with injuries? Is it that the West Indies are really tacitly trying to send him a message to push him in a particular direction? We don't know. And again, in the absence of clarity from both sides, we're just left to speculate.
There you go. Fazeer, excellent. Thank you for making time to speak with us again, and all the best. And avoid those injuries.
I'll try my best.
There you go, Fazeer Mohammed, international man of cricket. So the Andre Russell situation, Wayne, what do you think has pushed Roger Harper, a man who, as Fazeer Mohammed says, and I agree totally, completely anodyne fella, but he has almost courted controversy with what he has said about Russell and future invitations to the West Indies team?
Well, that tells you that his level of frustration, because I know a little bit about all of that. I've been involved in it somewhat, and therefore I can't speak too much on it. However, it tells you that, Roger Harper, being the chairman or the chief selector, cannot make that decision on his own. He has one vote just like everyone else, right? So that tells you it has to be a combination, a number of different persons who are coming together to get to that level where he's going to come out and say something like that. Because, yes, he's struggling with his knees. And of course, he tends to pull out of a number of tours and things, but he's 32 years old. And he can still win a lot of games for Cricket West Indies. So for Roger Harper to come out and say that, that tells you that he's very frustrated about maybe how Andre Russell has been dealing with selections over the years.
Mariah?
Definitely, George. My best T20 team includes Andre Russell. The last time he played against Sri Lanka, 14 balls. But I do get the sense that, the selectors are irritated because we have our best players doing everything for all the other teams. And when we need them, we're suffering. The selectors are getting the flack for it, and then they don't step up. So I just sense this pure frustration. So
as we end, the clarity has come from our producer that Roger Harper really was saying that once the other players step up, it will be difficult for Russell to get in.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. That's like saying if you are injured and your replacement is excellent, it will be difficult for you to come back in. Duh, of course. He is sending a message to Andre Russell. There's no way about it. And Roger Harper is the ultimate diplomat. He could be the governor of a central bank. Yeah, he'd be perfect for that role because his temperament is fantastic. So to say that, well, if if the other players who step up, it will be difficult for him to come. Of course it is. So he is sending a tacit message, trying to needle Russell in a particular direction. That's clear. Break time.